Doing the ping. Opening the channel, and I am now waiting to see how many people leave the server because of the @everyone. Alright, Zipper clearly had that one ready. Suppressed. You do not have permission to speak in this channel. This reminds me of the book 1984 by George Orwell. No, I haven't read it, but I imagine this is what the book is like. Oh, why in the middle of me setting up an SSH server? Despair. I don't know, you tell me. I mean, hey, this was scheduled, so you could have worked around it. People asking about Silksong. You're in the wrong server for that. Some Gosling posting, okay. Slicer asks, did you see that the new update is flagging ES Launcher on Steam? It's being flagged as a Trojan. I think I did see someone mention that, but that is not my wheelhouse. Cypriot says, ah yes, that's the spyware I added. Yeah, I don't know why this update has been giving us grief with some of these virus detectors. I know a bunch of people mentioned that Bit Detector was complaining about one of the libraries that we added for reading plugins from a zip file. Yeah, Warp says all the reports I've seen on Steam are Bitdefender complaining about Minizip. Yeah, I think I did see one other mention of the launcher, though. Yeah, perhaps coincidental. Doom says, I'm pretty sure Norton updated recently since it's been, it's now blowing up at everything I do. Yes, downloads and any files from Discord. Okay. You see, the real trick here is to just not have an antivirus software, and then just don't click on any suspicious links, and you'll never need it. Yeah, I was about to ask, does Bitdefender even allow that? Because I know that Warp was posting one of those websites for the people who were reporting that Bitdefender was flagging our game, and whatever website that was like, oh, this is completely fine. So clearly Bitdefender was doing something different. It even said Bitdefender thinks it's fine, the website. Okay. Yeah, Slicer says, I know we can manually just ignore it, but you never know these days. I mean, hey, I hope you trust us. It's kind of our word against the antivirus, but it is an open source game. You can theoretically check all the changes that were made. Okay, one of those cases. We don't know what source code was used to make Minizip. Isn't it on GitHub? Well, I guess theoretically speaking, since we're getting the actual zip or the actual DLL from a package manager. Isn't that actually one that got compromised recently, though? Like, they found it, but I might be thinking of something else. Okay. Toast says that was a while back. All right, we can ignore it then. Warp says we use VC package to download the source code, and then it and CMake build it. The results may be cached. True. All right, well, we've given it a few minutes of just talking about random stuff. I think enough people have shown up now that we can really jump into the meat and potatoes of these campfire chats. Hello, everyone who has shown up so far, and welcome to our 22nd campfire chat. If you're new here, we do these once a month on the first Saturday of the month. And this is just a way for any of you guys to ask us any sort of questions you want, preferably about the game, but I mean, if we're willing to answer a question, then we'll answer it. I hope everybody has been enjoying the update. If you somehow are not aware, we released version 0.10.13 last week, and there was also a mini patch in the middle of the week, yeah, 0.10.13.1, because there was something that we merged relatively last minute. It was within the last week and change of the release being deployed, and it had a couple of sneaky bugs in there that once you found out what they were, they became very obvious, and it was breaking the gameplay of a lot of missions. So Warp was like, we're just going to push a patch to remove the feature that was causing those issues, and then we'll re-add it in the next unstable release. That feature being that we added an ability to send travel instructions to mission NPCs. So now in the latest version of the game after the patch and in previous versions of the game, and NPCs can only stay in a single system. They can be completely uninterested in what the player is doing and just fly around on their own, like randomly spawned NPCs do, or they can follow the player. Those were the only three options we had. We did not have a way to say, okay, I want this NPC to spawn in this system and then travel to that system, then land and finish whatever it's doing. That wasn't an option. Mockdiv, using some prior work from Tehouch, was it? I forget. There was some prior work involved. Mockdiv can say in chat. Warp and Mockdiv both say yes. So there was some prior work from Tehouch, who's an older developer who hasn't been super active lately, but Mockdiv picked it up. Ooh, what did somebody say? Dino caught something. In any case, Mockdiv touched it up, but there were a couple of bugs in there again, so just had to pull that out. We'll rework it and fix it for next major update. But otherwise, some major changes that came with this update. Let me actually just pull up the changelog and highlight some of the breaking or the big changes, and then some of my favorites, I guess. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in. We revamped the Quarg. New ships, new artwork, new balancing, the works. The Quarg have been more or less the exact same for a decade. So we finally got around to updating them, and that will also assist in the creation or the continuation of the Coalition storylines. So anybody who has played the Coalition storylines, the new Quarg stuff will certainly be involved in all that. Cosmic asks why at everyone and not at here. So if somebody is offline and they want to be involved in the campfire chat, then they get the notification. If I just did at here, then people who are already online would be the only ones who get it. And then people who hop online later would see the ping, but by then the campfire chat's already done. K-Bean asks, should I go to the Quark homeworlds and check them out then? I mean, if you want. I don't see why you wouldn't. Although, technically, the Quark homeworld, singular, is not in the game yet. Doom says the reason they needed an update wasn't because they'd been the same for a decade, it's because they were a placeholder. True, true. So, when MZ added the Quark, it was, I think the only other, I think the first alien faction added. It was humans, of course, first. Then it was the Quark. Then the Korath and High in some order. But the Quark being intended to be tier 3, with no tier 2 factions existing in the game yet, it was it was basically a shot in the dark of, oh, they'll probably be roughly around here. But now we've actually brought them, in some cases, brought them down to a level that's more befitting of being called tier 3. So there's a similar gap between tier 2 and tier 3 as there is between tier 1 and tier 2. Next couple set of changes. We had a fair few UI improvements and features. The one I know I've seen a lot of people liking is that you can now pause the game while you are in flight without pulling up a menu. And you can still send commands to your escorts. How do you do that? Hit P. It's the default command is P, or the default key rather is P. If assuming you are on the latest version of the game, then it will pause. The slowing down thing, P does nothing. Are you sure you're on the latest version of the game? If you're playing on Steam, you need to opt into the beta version, the beta branch. So hit that drop down where it says none, and there should be an option that says beta. Just click on that. And then close the menu, and it'll update your game. Slicer asks, will taking over planets and a management system eventually be put in place? Sog says, not really. Managing planets and owning them as assets isn't really what ES gameplay is about. I think I'll take that as a moment to jump to the first submitted question to the submission box, because that's actually a similar topic. I believe Endless Sky could be even more immersive and rewarding if players were given the ability to create their own factions or establish stations in uninhabited systems. This feature would add depth to exploration and provide long-term goals, making the universe feel more dynamic and player-driven. This is a topic that comes up every so often. Generally, we just say that's not really the direction of the game. KB says Stellaris. Yeah, it's like... Go ahead.
What's already there and exploring what's already there.
I don't think my desktop audio is going to the Twitch stream. I don't see the bar moving. Hold on, say something.
Like through Discord, something.
Okay, it is now. Does streamer
Okay.
mode deactivate voice going through OBS?
No, not for me. It hasn't.
I disabled it
We're,
and it started working.
that's weird.
Okay, this is why I don't normally actually use streamer mode. I
Were
just
you like,
manually update my notification sounds.
was it blocking your voice too?
No, my voice was going through. It
Oh,
was
okay.
just the desktop audio was uh,
I see.
completely quiet. But now I have to change the notification sounds so that
Uh, Short summary is the question asked sounds like a point made after you finish the game, kind of like late game, kind of build upon planetary assets or like add more structures yourself, and it's a little bit of outside of the gameplay loop where it's more you're in the universe exploring the story as like one of the many people, like not necessarily an NPC, but you know.
yeah. Tybe says that this is what plugins are for, and we do have
Yeah.
plugins out there. I've frequently mentioned Ursa Polaris. Ursa Polaris lets you establish a station in the way system where you build it up over time. It requires a lot of credits to do, but eventually you get a bit of a one-stop shop for all outfits in the game and a fair few of the ships in the game.
Mm.
But in terms of the vanilla game, that's really not the scope that we're aiming for in terms of gameplay.
Yeah.
I understand that it's something that a lot of people like about other games, other space games, but we're not trying to be every space game possible or like any other particular space game aside from Escape Velocity. But even at this point, we're not tying ourselves just to what Escape Velocity did. All right. Jumping back to the changelog, though, I had mentioned the pause command. We added sound effects to the UI. That comes from Tybe, and Sog also helped out with that a bit. I know that we posted a. We don't have a lot of. Okay, there's more people in this voice chat right now than there are people who responded to the feedback box for the update. So I'm not saying you have to run to the feedback box right now, but it would be nice if people would provide feedback in the feedback box
Yeah.
that we give them. Kavian says Bit Defender is acting up. I didn't realize so many people used Bit Defender.
Yeah.
I was just saying that before at the start of the stream that Bit Defender was giving the update grief. What's wrong with Windows Defender? Exactly. Let me track down the feedback box though.
I got a link to it, but not the right link.
There you go. So I just
Yeah.
linked the feedback box in the channel. If you have not seen that, we do ask questions about new features and whatnot every update.
Well, and it's just feedback overall, new changes. Yeah. There's a lot of good ones for feedback this update, which is why it would be great if more people could submit feedback responses to the box.
Yeah.
But well, we're gonna get to that. There's like a brand new feature for that.
Slicer asks, will there be a way in the future to travel to pirate-controlled worlds without immediately being attacked? It's kind of hard to play as a pirate. Yes, eventually. Why did juror number 9 thumbs down the feedback box?
No feedback for you.
I'm saddened.
His previous comment was 0 to 10 update, revert every line of code.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we added sound effects to the UI. If you don't like them, you can actually go into the preferences, and there is a separate UI sound section or slider that you can turn that down for. But if you do like them, I mean, even if you don't like them, I would enjoy feedback on that. What about them don't you like? Is there too many? Are the sounds not good? So on and so forth. This one might interest some people. All of the, or a lot of the fragment and vertex, yeah, all the fragment and vertex shader code has been moved to data files that can be edited without recompiling the game. If you have knowledge of OpenGL and like to mess around with shaders, then you might be able to do some weird stuff with that. I don't know. Oh yeah, here's another big one. All secondary, almost all secondary weapons can now be restocked at any outfitter. It used to be that ammo was only sold at certain outfitters. Now, as long as you have the weapon on you, any place you land will restock that ammo. Jura asks,
Mhm.
Firestorm torpedoes? Yes, even Firestorm torpedoes. So a lot of the alien secondary weapons, like the core stuff, that you could plunder the weapon for, but it was very difficult to plunder any reasonable amount of ammo for, you can now basically use them where before you practically would never use them because it was so difficult to get your hands on the ammo. X Star asks almost what isn't available. There are 3 nuclear weapons that can't be rearmed, and then the Cothead emergency deployer cannot be rearmed either. The reason for the emergency deployer is because the ammo for that is actually an entire generator outfit.
You just shoot it out.
Yeah, the ship fires the entire generator as it's an emergency deployer. Okay, it would not make sense for you to be able to restock that. And
Mhm.
then the human nuke uses itself as ammo, so that can't be restocked in the same way as other secondaries. And then yes, also the Avgi nuclear missiles cannot be restocked. So
Mhm.
aside from those 4, all the rest of the secondary weapons in the game can be restocked at any outfitter. I have seen some people who really like the idea of this, and I've seen some people who are like, "This is terrible. This sucks. This takes too much out of the
It's
game for me." I know that
very
there was.
prefaces. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I know that on the announcement post on Steam there was some back and forth on it.
Yeah. I was gonna say preface it with it's very experimental and it's subject to change. It's not like a forever change, and it could be out like tomorrow or it could stay tomorrow. It's it was to address the overall lack of use of secondary weapons. That seems to be the case with most players. So right now we're kind of trying to find a sweet spot for that. This is obviously like the very far end of you can just refill anything anywhere except like 3 weapons in the game. There's a couple of players who think maybe there should be more restrictions on it. Maybe there should be some licensing behind it. Maybe there should be more lore reasons behind why things should or shouldn't be sold. Because originally the way secondaries were, it was that kind of lore. You have to go to the area that sells them, where they make the ammo. If you like with the alien species, whatever, what have you. Um, the change we made was kind of more in the thought line of things like crew and credits, where we intentionally keep those simple so it doesn't make the game like more muddy. Where like, oh, now you have to worry about credit conversion rates, or now you have to worry about guy number 194 on your 3000 cruise ship being a soldier of an alien species or something like that. So we're still looking for a lot of feedback on it, and if you guys have any, that would be great. And you can give it to the feedback box or just kind of comments around like everyone else has been doing. But yeah, it's very experimental. We're still looking at it. Richie says, I like how that part of the game is straightforward. You mean like the crew credits thing? Most people do. There's some like because Endless Sky is a very story-based game, they like the lore aspect of things and like making sense of most things. So sometimes people would be like, "Oh, what if I did have Alien Crew?" But it's just one of those easier for the sake of gameplay sort of things, and that's why we considered changing ammunition for that because people don't use ammunition very often. It's just one of those like it could go either way because in one case ammo is very common in video games and it's using consuming ammunition and that sort of thing is I don't know. I'd just say it's normal. And in other cases, there's a audience that completely does not use ammunition weapons, period, because of that. So we're trying to find a middle ground here for Endless Sky.
Hmm. Ammo in every game is
Everyone,
too scary.
someone uses the scavenger perk all the time.
Yes, the that that item that you just carry with you for the entire game and never use because you only want to use it in the optimal time, but the optimal time never comes. Next thing you know, the credits roll and you still have it in your inventory.
Yeah.
Exactly, says
Yeah.
Ice.
Then you can do a second playthrough. The first thing you get it, you use it on like the most simple enemy first time you see it. I didn't get to use this last time. Go boom!
Yeah, Ice is good enough. Yeah, I wasn't gonna say the first thing that came to mind.
Boo.
Marksman's going to
Good night,
sleep. Good
marksman.
night.
Crazy you're still awake.
Yeah. So moving on to some other big changes. The last one that we had listed under big changes was that the Patir mystery storyline has a continuation to it now. Part two of five, according to Becca.
I didn't know there was
I
5.
believe it was five. So if
There's some
you
crazy stuff
do
too.
not know how to get to that point in the story, it is actually pretty deep into the game. You need to have completed most of, if not all of, Cognizance, which is the Remnant storyline. Cognizance requires you to do a lot of introductory stuff with the Remnant before you even get to there. And then you have to also complete Chapter 1 of Patir before even getting to Chapter 2. So it's pretty deep in there if you don't know at all what's being talked about. I don't know, it'll take you a while to get there. If you do have an old save laying around that's done all that stuff before already, though, then you should be able to land in Remnant space and continue the storyline.
Pretty neat sprites in that.
How it feels to spread misinformation. All right. If you find a way for factions to interact beyond what the player does, that would really liven it up, says Slicer. What do you mean by that? If you find a way for the factions to interact beyond what the player does, you mean like have stuff just randomly happen without player input at all? I mean, we theoretically could do that. It's just we generally don't. Because we don't want, at least with how the story's been written so far, we generally don't make it so that things are timed in such a way where if you don't get to something quick enough, then you just miss out.
Hmm.
We want the game to, we want most of the story of the game to be something that you can interact with at your own pace.
It's one of those cases where we have a lot of players who enjoy not playing the main story, and a lot of that is because they're not, it's optional. They don't have to activate it. They don't have to be a part of it for to get into evolve it. Sorry, I'm trying to. It's in what you're suggesting. I'm assuming you're asking for like factions to like invade one another or start trade with another or like discover one another or something like that. The way most of this game's story goes is the player is what triggers the story events to happen. Um, the only really indirect ones I could think of, I guess the Zen or not Zenith bombing, the very first bomb, like that does kind of happen without the player being part of it, but interspecies interactions is a little bit more of a step above. So if say the chorus suddenly attacked the high, for whatever reason, I doubt that would happen though. That would be something that the player would have some sort of agency in maybe triggering or just being a part of it, rather than that just happen in the background, and then we have to start keeping track of what did happen, and then the player does start to know something did happen with that. But overall, like just with Endless Sky, it's more player direction than it is like background stimulator. It's like more active than it is like a passive sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I am kind of breaking that. How do I say, default kind of way of the game works in the story, but um, it's a little bit more for like different factions in the entire galaxy to be doing it. Who knows? Maybe super late game when there's like way later stories, something major happens again, and then it's like, oh, now the player wants to get involved in that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Someone the core
So,
goes off. Who knows?
are there any other changes from this update that people are interested in highlighting?
I know you mentioned the core ships, but I just want to make the comment that there's people who don't know that there's like a medium and a heavy warship now too, just because they haven't seen them. They're pretty rare, but I can see how the
Also,
comments. Oh, go ahead.
also, if you are interested in plugins, either because you are a plugin creator or because you like to extend the game further, we can now load plugins directly from zip files. I know we touched on this when we were talking about all of the visit actions with the antivirus, but it's actually a pretty cool feature.
Mm-hmm.
Just look out for this because I know a lot of people keep the zip plugins in the plugins folder and then they unzip it, and now they might show up again if you deleted them. So keep an eye out.
I mean, we at least do have the enable disable plugin feature. So
Yeah.
Jesus Marine, long time name, says I was kind of hoping for an extension to the Wanderer campaign where I could at least start seeing some dead planets come back to life. We will get to that one later. There's a submitted question about that, but we can talk about that more in depth later. Richie asks, would Alpha campaign ever be an option? Eventually, yes. MC's original plan was actually to finish the Wanderer campaign, and the next big campaign he was going to work on would be the Alpha campaign. That's like an 8-year-old concept now, though. So I don't know if that's the direction that we're planning to go in, but I would like to see us have something along those lines at some point.
You've been around longer than I have, so I don't know. But would have that been like another like a fourth side, or are we talking like after Wanderers, or?
No, the plan was for the way he said it was he wants the main campaigns, the main human campaigns. Then the Wander campaign comes after the main human campaigns. But he wanted an Alpha
Mhm.
campaign to run alongside that, where it was basically a combination of the main plot and the Wander campaign. So it would be like a
Okay,
double length campaign almost, because it would cover
that's
both
cool.
events. It would cover the events of the main plot and then continue on to cover the events of the Wander campaign from the perspective of the alphas.
Okay, I think that'd certainly be interesting. Definitely after the other human ones first, though. But
Yeah, that is the case where we probably don't want to jump into that anytime soon,
yeah,
given that there are so many other campaigns that are more pressing that we want to get to. So we do want to finish Wanderers. We do want to finish Syndicate and Navy. High Reveal is in there. You know how it is.
mm-hmm.
All right. I'll hop into the submission box though. So after that first question about being able to establish your own faction, the second question is how can a skilled member of the community get involved in advancing the course of development and contribute to the benefit of Endless Sky? This is a pretty big and broad question, so I would like if some others would jump in here. Anyone else want to start this?
I would just have a follow-up question. What do you mean by skilled members?
That's not where I
That's
would have
that's what I'm
put
wondering.
that.
No.
But
So
okay.
I think what you are trying to ask is whether they are interested in creating art or content or code. Like what's your area of skill? I guess there is some common places where you can begin with all of them. So the game is up on GitHub, and Emma linked the repository. If you look there, there are about 1 million things you can see. One interesting thing is this issues tab. There's like 700 issues in it, or 800 more like. You can probably find quite a few that will match your area, and then you can see if you can work on that issue, or if you're not sure where to get started with that, you can ask for more specific advice there. Also, if you want to create like images or content, you can start by creating a plugin. That's probably a bit easier than getting something into the game, so it might be better to get started there. But with code, you can't really make it with plugins, so you don't have this option.
That's why I brought up skilled members, because you don't really need to be super skilled to contribute to the game. A lot of us started from zero. So like some people have made artwork for the games, some people who have written content for the game, the whole how the data files work. Those are a little bit to get into to first learn. But there are plenty of contributors who had no idea what they were looking at when they first joined the project. So anybody can get involved.
Yeah, Hector says, just go look at issues, find something you're able to do, and do it. Something I will give as a slight warning to that. We do have 800 open issues on GitHub, and not all of them have had eyes on them because there are just so many. And I mean, even if they did have somebody who looked at it a while ago, it's been so long with most of them that ideas might have changed on how an issue should be addressed, or if an issue should even be addressed in any way at all. So don't just randomly grab something just because it's an open issue and expect whatever approach you come up with to try and resolve it to be accepted. Generally, it's a good idea to comment on the issue and or comment in Discord linking to the issue and or ping a developer and be like, hey, thoughts on this? What do you think should be done with this? Instead of just kind of running off on your own and expecting whatever you could to come up with to be accepted. Roadrunner says, from my own perspective, reviewing seems to be the area of greatest need right now, whether that be writing or code. I don't know if I would describe it as the greatest need, but we definitely do always welcome people reviewing stuff. And I think really if you... So having the skill to review something is not necessarily the same as having the skill to do something. But if you do have the skill to do something, I would hope you can at least recognize in other people's work when they're doing something that could be improved. Which is to say, if you are skilled, I would think you would be able to at least contribute something to the review process. So right now we have almost 100 pull requests open, and it always helps if there are more people reviewing things before they're merged. So just looking at pull requests that you like, testing them yourself, giving feedback to the creator of the pull request, giving an approval if you think the pull request looks good. It isn't, so not everything, it's not, how do I want to word this? It's not purely a function of how many times a pull request gets approved that determines whether or not we merge it. But if there are a lot of approvals on a pull request, it does point to us, okay, what are people interested in, and what is probably good enough that we don't need to spend an exorbitant amount of time reviewing it ourselves because so many other people have already looked through it. And at least they said they play tested it. Jane links to the Help Wanted page on the wiki and asks, is this up to date? So that has not been that page has not been updated since 2022, since June of 2022. So in a few days, it'll be 3 years old. Or, well, at least since it was last updated. June 12th of 2022. But just looking at it, I don't think it's very far off of what we still need. I mean, some of these are more just like perpetual needs. Like we always would appreciate better, higher quality audio. We would always appreciate people finding photos to use for landscapes. We would always appreciate new missions. We always appreciate people finding typos and fixing issues. So, although this hasn't been touched in a long time, I would say it is at least accurate enough to take a look at. But it's also very general. So, if you want something that's more specific that can be worked on at any given moment, then that's where the issues come in, or looking through pull requests to see what people are looking at and help out there. And yeah, Mockdiv linked to the actual issues page. Jura says 800 issues, more like 800 features. Xstar asks, how is the music going? Like, is there a team working on it or just individual efforts? Anyone else?
So right now, there is a pull request for rewriting much of the audio backend of the game that will enable us to get better music support. It's waiting for reviews and testing for the most part.
Yeah. So we do have the capability to play music in a few places. I know there's definitely some features that we wanted to add around that. In addition to this refactor, there was also an older pull request, I believe has been closed at this point, orphaned because it wasn't being kept up to date. But we want to make it so that we can control how music is played a lot more dynamically. In terms of the actual production of music, I think that's mainly just been like scattered individuals come in, they drop a song, and they're like, "Oh, what do you guys think about this?" And then it never really goes anywhere. I would say for people who can produce music, if you aren't familiar with GitHub, maybe get yourself familiar with GitHub and just open a pull request to try and add some in. Because random messages on Discord, while we might see them, they aren't likely to result in any sort of action actually going on unless there's a concerted push on them or they move to GitHub in some way, shape, or form. Because that's where the actual development of the game is going on.
I'd also say it'd probably be worth making a discussion and then having different people show what type of music they're working on, because it could get a lot of varying types of music pretty quickly in this in like kind of open source setting. So while we're working on getting the backbone and like the coding work for having a bigger overall music part to the game, it'd probably be a good idea to kind of get a sense of what kind of music we're looking for, what style. That way, because it might be a little bit goofy if someone makes like a jazz song, another person makes like an 8-bit retro song or something like that. But yeah, maybe just getting together or having creators throw around their type of songs they make and seeing if we can find like a overall kind of theme for Endless Sky. At least something more subtle, so we don't have like if anyone has ever seen the trailer for the game that one of our contributors made, like you have that epic orchestral music and then another part of the game could have some like really weird like gloopy music or something, so probably keeping it a little bit more consistent than something like that at least. But
Roadrunner says, "Yeah, I don't know about the other devs, but I have most of the channels in this server muted. So if you want me to see something, ping me on Discord or reply to me on GitHub." Yeah. There's
yeah,
just so much discussion going on Discord that we can't possibly see everything.
I miss ping ups occasionally as well, so feel free to ping in. Jesus, since I don't like music and I like to play music off to the side. Oh, yeah, that's other options. I'm assuming if once we do have a whole music set up, that there's probably a way to mute it.
I mean, isn't there already a slider for it? It just doesn't actually do anything because there's no music being
Yeah,
played.
but I'd imagine there'd be because there's gonna be more than one like reason to have a music track playing in a certain setting. But I guess that would all be under one slider. I like the separation of music versus like environment. If an environment might have like a music kind of tone to it, because I know I work with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually ambient station sounds music. Yeah, that's what I mean. That probably wouldn't be music.
That's another thing. If not just like people who can make music, but people who just are audio designers, I would
Hmm.
like it if most of the planets in the game had some sort of ambient track playing. Right now, the only place we have ambient tracks is a few stations, or most of them, I think. But if every planet had some sort of ambient track that tied into something about the planet itself, then I think that would be pretty cool. Audio engineer says K Bean. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those things that does come from EV that I also enjoyed. Like with the the original Escape Velocity games, some planets had like some wind blowing or some water or some waves. Other ones had like a little bird sound in the background or something like that. So maybe some like local bird species. Little small like odd bits like that are kind of nice.
Tybe says the station sound sucks. I never said it was good.
It's
I
very.
just said we did have it, and it probably could be improved.
I mean, it sounds good, like a good like factory kind of station sound. Not all stations probably sound like that though.
Yeah. Ice says, or asks, what exactly do we need audio for? I could record my local forest or river. I mean, that could probably work for a few places.
Yeah,
Record your
that could
local
work.
factory too, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I think that like Factory World should probably have some sort of like factory ambience to them,
Mhm.
like heavy refinery type stuff. Uh, I remember this old Flash game called Alona Shooter, and I tried grabbing the audio from the ambient audio from there that plays while you're in between waves because it was a wave defense game where you're inside the market of a walled city or whatever, and it's like an ambience of people walking around talking to each other. You hear a horse-drawn carriage go by. I went to go grab it, and I was like, "This is a lot more low quality than I remember." You know how your memory just like makes older games seem a lot better than they were. Then you go back and you're like,
Yeah.
"Wow, this isn't actually that high quality." Well, at least the audio wasn't. The game is still awesome, but something like that for more like a more slightly populated but still kind of rural world. Um, like a farming world could have that type of ambience to it uh, when you're in the spaceport. Xstar says, "You know what this game needs? Train sounds." I mean, hey, you could. And
Trains exist.
I don't just want one sound for every planet, or
Yeah.
every type of planet. I think it should be a library of sounds that we're able to randomly pull from. What was the game called? Alona Shooter. Oh, let me. Alona Shooter. If you there's another game that I think just called Alona. Um, that's like an RPG made by the same guy or same people. But Alona Shooter was an old wave defense game on ArmorGames.com if you've ever been there. Congregate, my beloved. Yeah. All right. I've realized that we are approaching an hour. I know last time we only went about an hour, but that was because I had to leave. But I am actually pretty free today, although I don't want to go longer than 2 hours. And there's a fair few questions left in the submission box, so
Yeah, let's keep going.
yeah, let's hop to the next question. What is the current state of Wanderers Part 3, and when can we expect it to be finished? I will let Doom answer this question.
All eyes on two.
Never says Warp Core. That's not the answer we want to hear.
That's weird. Your name's not Doom.
Doom says the current state is I am supposed to be writing it and have not gotten very far. And Warp says every time you ask, it takes 2 months longer.
Yeah, that's why the Navy campaign's 8 years late. Everyone keeps asking.
K-Bean goes, hey Warp Core, hey Warp Core, hey Warp Core. Hey, listen. Hey, listen. Um, to give a more bright answer to that, there has been some progress on it. Maybe not as quick as we would like. but it's definitely something I would like to push on after High Reveal, probably.
I think we're kind of wrapping up on a lot of like big mechanical changes to the game, and maybe we can get more things on the content side this year, especially in the way of like larger projects, because like especially getting to the core, for me that was like a big statement because that's been a project that's been around for so long, finally seen finished. So
Hmm. Yeah, I've definitely been focusing on mechanics lately. I know that at some point we probably do want to be like, all right, we're enough with adding all these mechanics. Let's move back to focusing on story, because I know that recently there was a lot of talk about pirate content, and it was like, oh, what kind of
yes,
mechanics would we want to make pirate content actually pretty cool to use? And I started just working on all those the past few months
yeah,
instead of actually working on High Reveal or anything else. Pilot Mate says, not a contributor, but enjoying the game for years now. Just wanted to say, great job, love this game, back to
thank you.
lurking. Thanks.
At the very least, I think like having this more content and things for pirates is a good like recent direction, just because it's going back to more like the original core of the game and human space and human story, which I think is a good idea. um we have plenty of alien factions at the moment, but I very much would like to get us rolling on the human stuff again.
Yeah, I know that there was a discussion thread on GitHub where somebody posted a bunch of memes with their meme wrapped feedback for the game, and in the comments of that, somebody said something to the effect of, "I feel like the game hasn't actually expanded a lot. Like we have a lot of new things, but it doesn't feel that much bigger." And the response I gave to that was, "Well, I think we've definitely grown wider. We have more alien
Mhm.
factions, more mechanics, all sorts of stuff, but we haven't really grown deeper because
Mhm.
a lot of those sections of the game that we've added to are pretty shallow. Like there's not a lot of Bunradia content. There's not a lot of AVKI content yet. There's not a lot of successor content.
Or good.
But that's all. Yeah, and Incipias as well, says Ziproot. That's all
Or good.
starting to be more focused on. Or at the very least, I would like to focus on growing deeper throughout the next few years, because it's definitely been a case of growing wide um, in years past. Roadrunner says, I will say for the Republic campaign, we are working on an outline. Xstar asks, is there someone working on the core of Fret, or are they just chilling right now? Well, they would be involved in the Wander campaign. So there's nothing that's really going on mission-wise just for them. Although I would actually be open to there being just like small random missions for the core Fred if anybody wants to work on those. Nothing too major, but like just side missions you could do that might or might not be related to the Wanderer campaign. And then Doom basically just said the same thing. All right, Warp Core is trying to move us along. The next question is there. Are there plans for a Pug expansion? Notably, giving the Wanderer Pug some better ships, because besides their Effecto, they still use Tier 1 hulls. Warp responds, I'm not aware of anyone planning to do it. I think it would be kind of cool, but it's not really all that important. And then he just keeps running through these. The question after that is a joke, and I will not acknowledge it further. The next question isn't a question, or the next thing isn't a question. It's a statement that the new Quarg stuff looks so good at absolute peak, and telling the people that did it good job. Yep. As far as the Pug expansion goes, yes, that is something that's been discussed, is giving the Wanderer Pug a set of Tier 2 ships that are unique from what you see during the human campaign. There's no actual plans to do it right now, but it is one of those eventually we would like to have it done. Okay, yeah, the
Looks
next one
Becca.
literally says this isn't a question in its response in the submission. So yeah, thanks. Shout out to the people who worked on the Quarg stuff then. What will you do to address the Syndicate extremist scandal? I worked for the Syndicate, but I lost my job due to my boss being responsible for the nukes. No comment. I had an idea that you could add other rogue fleets around the galaxy. Like the player in the late game has a whole mix of powerful ships with a very mixed crew and doesn't exactly stay in one place, not tied to any government, just kind of a free spirit. I have to add the text wrapping to this. Similar fleets are implied to exist around the place by the Remnant campaign. I was thinking it might be cool if jump drive equipped fleets like this could rarely spawn in certain back corners of the map, maybe like an advanced marauder kind of thing, just as a sort of advanced challenge for the late game and just to fill out the empty spaces more. I don't know, would that be cool or would it be too much? Of course it's the Remnant campaign, says Anarchist. Moctiv asks, more person ships? Yeah, I'm thinking that's probably what it would be along the lines of. Doom says, I don't remember the Remnant campaign implying that, but it shouldn't be. I think I understand what they're referencing, what this question is referencing. I know at the very least I feel like there is a reference to some other captain showing up aside from the player. Is it? Anarchist says it's the core ship they scan, I think. I'm not aware then. There's a reference somewhere, I think, about custom ships. Hector asks Beelzebub. That's on the other side of the galaxy. So not exactly. I know, too, though, that the Bunradia basically... Does it? I forget if I did. If does the intro mission imply that... I mean, it kind of implies it, but does it explicitly state that humans have been... at least a human has been to Bunradia space before? The idea there, though, was... it could have potentially been a syndicate scouting fleet of some sort, because we know they had access to jump drives. And it could also be potentially the alphas, because the alphas are, spoiler alert, the coalition know about them, the High know about them, the Korath eventually know about them through the course of the story. They've been around. So there are other fleets out there that probably not as powerful as the player can get, because we just let you expand like crazy. But there are definitely other actors in the universe that are capable of similar feats to the player. Doom says, I have to go, my planet needs me. Goodbye, Doom. In terms of actually interacting with those, though, I would be very wary of using person ships for that, or rare fleets, because I feel like if you do come across a fleet like that, it should be through the story. You should be able to actually interact with whatever person this is. So maybe there's another human out there like you who has a jump drive that they stole from a core ship, and they built up a small fleet, and they're flying around the galaxy outside of human space. But that would be some sort of storyline, not just some random fleet that you can come across but never actually be able to interact with. All right. Next question. This is a repeat, though. I understand there's intent to add a third chapter of the Wanderer story. How much of that exists, and what kind of stuff would we expect from it? Okay, so slightly different. Doom did say he has an outline, but he just left, so he can't answer that question. Will there ever be a galactic war between the Quarg and Pug? Then everyone else picks a side. Maybe. maybe not. Next, I'd love to just write lore or dialogue for the campaigns. I've gotten a lot better at my writing and have multiple 5+ page documents about my own stories. I would be over the moon to write anything that makes it into the game. I just have no idea how to code new content. I just want to write. Tell me what you want, and within a day, I'll have a multi-page Google Doc for you. Where's the mission builder? Aren't there like 2 or 3 of those things? Let him
There's
cook.
map builders, but I don't know about mission.
So Jane links the creating missions wiki. I know that somebody was working on an actual. Was it Wolfie? Someone was working
It was
on.
as Wolfie, yes.
Someone was working on some sort of program that you could use to create missions, and it would kind of help you along with writing thing or like setting up the actual mission code, and then you would just plug your story content in wherever you wanted.
I think Wolfie's one required a lot of different code changes though, but I know there's been a couple attempts since then too by other people as well.
Yeah, Mockdiv and Warp say that Delvin is also working on something, apparently. Hector says the code syntax changes so often and is simple enough that I'd just learn it, really? You mean so infrequently, not so often? Yeah, I would say that it's... I mean, it is kind of coding, but it is super simplistic. The creating missions wiki page that Jane linked actually has an intro section that says like, hey, here is the bare minimum to create a mission. You give it a name, you give it a destination. You don't even actually need to give it a destination. You can give it a description. You can say like, hey, I wanted to offer under this case, and then really most of the writing of a mission is actually still the story content of it, the stuff that people read in game. Very little of the writing of a mission goes into, or at least in terms of just like character length, goes into setting up the mission itself for the game to recognize it.
It's more missions that are more like mechanically involved than it is missions that are like writing involved, where it gets a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say a hurdle, but to learn how the missions interact with one another.
There is also the case too that you could ping somebody in Discord who knows how to write missions and be like, hey, I have the story for you. Plug it in. I'm pretty sure that I've seen people do that before where one person will write out the story content and the other person will put it into the mission format. Yeah, and Warp says you don't even have to ping somebody. Just like drop your Google Doc. Drop what you have and be like, hey, who wants to turn this into a mission? It's free to have.
It depends on the extent of the mission too. If it's like a side mission or like a little neat story within human space, that's one thing. If it's like a whole civilization of ancient aliens or something, that might be another. It really depends on what you're interested in making.
Yeah. All right, last submitted question. Ability to use an escort as a fuel tanker, question mark. That is, one ship with lots of fuel, and scooping that can give another of your ships a fuel tank of jump fuel rather than having to do a single jump at a time. Trying to max out combat ships usually sacrifices utilities like jump range. You can do this now. You can have one ship that you load up with fuel pods and ram scoops, and when one of your ships is out of fuel, they'll just help each other out to refuel themselves. Markov says, but only one jump at a time, right? Yeah. They'll refuel at every stop, or at every jump, rather. So they want to Hector says, yeah, they want to completely refuel. Okay, yeah, I mean, we could probably look into doing something like that. If the ship that is giving the fuel has a lot of fuel, then maybe we just say, just top it up even more than just one jump. Slicer says, I still want to domesticate the space whales.
Which ones? There's a couple.
All right, well, we have eclipsed an hour, and we are out of questions in the submission box.
Do some FIFA ones for about 24 minutes.
Yeah, warps his stream over.
Let's do it early.
When does the mug update? Thermog Nuclear Missile asks, do you think that by the time ES is set in present day, the Navy campaign will be done? I would hope.
I think the pug would have gotten us by then.
Ice asks, everyone asks how Endless Sky is doing, but how are the ES devs doing? I'm doing well. How about everyone else?
Doing okay.
Warp says I'm always tired. When does the Republic turn into the Empire? Asks Fairy. That's a secret. My new empire. Slicer says, I want my fleet to auto-take on missions so I don't have to micromanage. I mean, is accepting jobs really micromanaging? It's kind of how the game works. I know I've seen some people say they want more automation. Like, I want my ship to automatically buy and sell commodities or automatically accept jobs. At that point, that's another case of, like, you're kind of playing a different game than what we're trying to do. Fleets you're not directly controlling, yeah, that's, again, we're not ever going to add a feature where you can say, hey, I want this freighter to fly back and forth and just keep selling and buying commodities over and over again without me having to do anything. Golden asks, do pods and launchers intentionally not merge their fire? I mean, yeah. They're different weapons, therefore they take up different slots in your secondary selection. Although, you do have the option to fire all secondaries at once. If you cycle through all your secondaries and then cycle one more, it selects everything, and cycling one more selects nothing. Will we get high plushies in-game as collectibles? like the mugs.
That's not the first time that's been asked.
The problem with that would be we would need to model a high plushie. And generally speaking, we don't want to model the aliens in game because we want them to be left up to the imagination of the player. So we could. The most we would probably do is it would just be like a straight up actual squirrel.
No,
And it would maybe
yeah.
be like sold by somebody as like, oh, here's a high plushie, but it's actually just like a normal squirrel plushie that they're
You got
reselling.
conned. Then you get caught with one in a high standing here. He goes, "That's what you think we look like?" Or something.
That's crazy. Azure says I'm going to add a new species just so I can market a line of children's toys.
The money.
We need to make money. Unfettered with a monkey plushie. This stream was sponsored by the Syndicate.
You guys want 3D printed endless sky ships? Now you guys want plushies for endless sky?
Hey, I mean, the game, it's open source, the licensing is permissible.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to go out and design their own plushie, you're free to do so. I know that there was somebody on Steam who asked, am I allowed to make my own stories based off of Endless Sky? And the answer is yes. And they don't
Yeah.
even have
Like
to
they
be
wanted,
plugins or anything. It could just be like a normal story.
yeah, like they wanted to write like an actual like novel or book or like
Yeah.
written scenario, and like you can, yeah, go make your own Star Wars story except endless sky. Not so long in the future in a galaxy right where you're standing.
You could sell Endless Sky if you wanted with 2 thumbs down.
You probably
Everyone
could.
disliked this comment.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, yes. But everyone would be unhappy. Tom.
Yeah, he liked it.
And people crashed out me because I just considered taking money once. Jeez.
Bad warp core.
All right, well, let me just double check. Yep, no more comments in the submission box. Anything else we want to discuss real quick? Because if not, I think it's about time to start signing off. K-Bean keeps spamming body pillows for Endless Sky. Oh, in Endless Sky. Okay, yeah, no.
No. No, if it's in, it's no. But if he's not in the game, then you
In
didn't say
and
no.
out of. I mean, I told you, you're free to design your own body pillow outside of the game. It will likely not be in the game.
Real size Shraggy pillows.
That'd be a
That'd be
big
pretty
pillow.
big.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like airplane sized pillow.
10-meter. I forget what was the size. They describe the doorways as being. When new large ships? I don't know. Any devs play Magic the Gathering? I don't.
I used to a lot. Why? You're talking about the Final Fantasy collab? I thought that was cool.
Okay.
Or are you saying we should have our own Magic the Gathering collab? Oh, ask some random questions? Okay. What's 9 plus 10?
Very. When the final mission ends and they say all that's left is an endless sky, so you low-key burn your computer.
No,
Roll
you don't have to
credits.
burn it. The game's going to burn it. Like when the game is done, your computer will self-destruct.
It'll combust.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the reason we added mini-zip is we knew that Bitdefender would flag it, alright? We want to get you in a false sense of security every time that Bitdefender flags that it's not actually a problem. So the one time that it is an actual problem, you'll ignore. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, Zipper says, "Oh, that's why Bitdefender is mad." Absolute sin. Will we ever get more
Um,
content for Over the Rainbow? People keep asking this, and the answer is likely no. Over the Rainbow is intended to be an end. Like there's not
yeah.
intended to be anything more beyond that. It's the end of the main campaign, and that's it. Yeah, Over the Rainbow is done, says Hector.
You could kind of think of it. I like putting it this way. You could think of it as like a red herring from the pug. You think there's more, or maybe something happened in that area. You don't know, or maybe the pug are just like being silly with you.
Check Warrior asks, so we won't ever get an explanation for the Quarg ring? I mean, there actually is an
Well,
explanation in the game.
yeah.
You just have to put the pieces together. We don't. It's not explicitly laid out what is up with Over the Rainbow.
The pug found a cool shiny object. They stole it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, shiny. Wow, I sure don't spoil.
Are we getting other faction starts? Well, we have the high start, and Anarchist did open a pull request to add new starts in human space. If the question though is, can I start as something other than a human? Potentially in the future, but
A lot of work.
probably not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Just due to the fact that basically all of the game's content is assuming that you're a human. It would require
Yeah.
changing a lot of stuff, at least in human space. It would probably be very reasonable to update all of the alien content to react to
Mhm.
you also being some non-human alien. But in terms of human content, so much of it is like, oh, hey, you're an alien. Or, I mean, you're human, rather, you're not an alien.
Yeah. There'd have to be like a billion condition checks for that for every mission, or
Yeah,
most, I guess.
your Korth in a trench coat. Zip for devs confirm first last is an alien.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I'm not even going to read what Azure just posted.
I'm gonna delete what we just.
When is the stream supposed to end? I need to get back to ripping my hair out and stalker modding. Currently at 98
Right now.
mods. Warps is right now. Yep, we're done.
All right.
That's the end.
See ya.
Alright, so thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you for being in chat. Thank you for asking questions and talking with us. Thank you for the kind words that some of you gave us. It's
Mhm.
always a good thing to see. I'm glad that people are enjoying the game. As I mentioned at the start, we do this every month on the first Saturday of the month. So the next time we will be doing this will be July 5th. For all of you in the States, that will be the day after July 4th. So I hope you have a good July 4th before then.
Mhm.
We will be releasing a stable update at the end of the month on the 28th. That will be the 0.10.14 update. That will just be including a bunch of bug fixes and minor tweaks from the latest stable update.
Unstable.
Anything else to mention? Or is that it? Zipper says, I didn't say this for 0.10.13, but I stand by my statement that the game gets better every update. I would sure hope it does.
Thank you.
Ice says July 5th. OMG, that's 4 days after Canada Day.
Barry says, "Have an end of the sky, everyone. You too. Happy end of the sky." All right. See you guys. Thanks for coming.
Yep. See you later.